All right, working on the 1966 Triumph. Going to open up the primary. I've used my spiffy little uh, brake adjuster tool, remover tool, so the brake is disconnected. I've disconnected the muffler mount right here and pushed the muffler down a couple of inches with a 2x4 wedge. That lets me have access to the bottom of the primary case. And I'm going to take the primary cover off now and take a look at and replace the clutch plates. So we're ready to actually start doing some work now. Hello there. Let's talk about clutches. Okay, I've got the primary case open, drained, clutch plates out, ready for a new set. Interestingly, I had this primary case open for other reasons and didn't do anything with the clutch because basically it was out of scope at the time. But on the test ride, I found out that in second gear, if you get on the throttle hard, it would slip. So first of all, let's talk about gaskets. I always buy these extra thick gaskets. They're more expensive, but as you can see by this one, this is the same gasket, and they come apart very nicely if you use the anaerobic gasket sealer. And on a privately owned bike, you can reuse this gasket. New sealer, new gasket, they come apart clean, reusable. I can't, not on a client bike. So I always buy a new gasket and use sealer on it. You don't want a leaky gasket just because you were too cheap to buy a new one on a client bike. First of all, the client's paying for the gasket, so you might as well buy it. There's no sense in not buying a new gasket. On a privately owned bike, feel free to reuse the gasket. And if you're on your own bike, buy those extra heavy, thick ones that several suppliers offer. Once again, this is my little tool for removing the brake adjuster. That works really nicely. This is a special tool I made out of a large screwdriver, and I'll try to zoom in on that so you can see the end. And that's used for removing the brake springs. All right, talking about the clutch springs, sorry. Talking about clutch springs, these are the ones that came out of the bike. This is a set of heavy-duty racing springs that I bought a long time ago for reasons unknown, and they've been sitting in basically my parts boxes with nowhere to go. I'm going to install them on this clutch and then see how hard it is to pull the clutch lever. And if it's more uncomfortable than I like for a client-owned bike, I will take them back out and put in the stockers. These are the clutch plates that came out of the bike. These are the clutch plates going into the bike. I always replace the fiber and the steel because if you only replace the fiber, which is normal, most people only replace the fiber because frankly the steels don't wear out, but I have had some that I've had to go back in there and replace the seals afterwards, and that's 2 times the labor, of which I don't get paid for the second time. So I always replace these in a set, steel and fiber. It's not that much money. Replace them all. What else to say? That's pretty much it. The bike is apart. Everything's clean. I always use ATF in the primary, and you can see it's pretty darn clean. This has been in here a while. And this stuff here is from the fiber plates. So you can see they've worn a little bit. And I'm going to clean that out. I will clean out the bottom of the case here. And oh, I know what I want to talk about. Let's talk about the clutch basket and center. This basket is marginal. It's not ready to be replaced per se. If I had this all taken apart, I'd put a new clutch basket in it. But I'm not taking it apart. This is pretty good. But I want to zoom in here on the grooves, and I'll show you something. Let's see if I can see. You see those dimples? That's where the plates have hammered the basket. And when they get bad enough, and these are marginal, when they get bad enough and you pull the clutch in, the clutch plates won't release. They're stuck in the notches. So this one's marginal. I would replace it if I was taking the whole thing apart, but I'm not, so I won't. But what I will do is take a file and go in here, a little square file, and I will file these faces to reduce the size of these hammered areas, these notches, so that the clutch will continue to give a good release. I've never really seen, well, maybe once or twice, seen the hub have notches in it because it just doesn't take the beating that the outer basket takes. You can see a little bit of mark there. So once again, if I were taking this primary completely apart, I would replace the basket, and frankly, I'd replace the hub too. It's one of those, why not replace the hub also? So at this point in time, I'm going to clean up the notches, put the clutch back together with the extra heavy springs, see if that makes it too heavy for a client bike. And if so, then I'll use the stock springs. I'm going to oil everything up. I use ATF, Ford ATF in the primary, gives a nice clean release. And so I will oil all of these up, put them in, and seal it up, and see how the clutch performs on the next test ride. By the way, there's a nut on the back side of the foot peg, way on the back. And if you put a 3/4 inch socket on it, you can then reach that socket from the other side of the bike with a really long extension. And it's a whole lot easier than putting your hand up in there and trying to unbolt that silly nut. So anyway, tools make the job easier. So anyway, that's where we are. I've got to go to lunch now, the Old Farts Motorcycle lunch, and then pick up afterwards. Well, it's later in the day. I shrouded the full inside of the primary with cloths, top, bottom, sides, all the way around the clutch basket. And I filed the edges and the sides of the outside notches and then flushed it out really, really good with spray cleaner, and was able to smooth out those notches a lot. And I was able to catch all of the residual metal, I hope, and I'm pretty confident that I did. And whatever else is in there, it's going to fall to the bottom anyway, so it should be okay. It's not the first time I've done this. Those are the new plates that are in place. I forgot to video the installation, but basically they're in there, just sitting there. And I'm going to go ahead and close up the clutch and get a feel for it, and I'll let you know how it goes. So. All right, the clutch cover's on, the clutch springs are on in. These are the heavy duty, the one of the spiffy racing springs that I found, that I've had for years. And they've just been sitting here, so I thought I'd try them. They're in now, and I'm pulling the lever up here and getting great separation. And it's not that hard. I mean, it's tougher than a stalker, but I guarantee it ain't going to slip. So in the meantime, I'm now going to adjust the clutch release rod adjustment. Bottom line is you turn this in until it touches right about there. I go back about a 1/4 turn to get a little space in there so that there's no pressure on the release rod when it's not being used. Put this through here, put that through there, turn the nut down, and we're going to lock the nut now with this. I'm holding it with the screwdriver. I'm going to lock the nut, and now I'm going to do something that'll probably upset some of you. Hold it like this, hold the whole thing, take yonder big wrench, and I've just locked that in place. No Loctite, I don't do that. That has never failed. So, looks like we got good clutch action. I like it. I could ride the bike with this clutch, that's no problem. So I'm going to close it up and call her done and see when on the test ride if it's got any slippage, which I just know it won't. And that might finish the bike. So anyway, I'm going to close things up now. I took the primary cover and I cleaned the full surface of the gasket area. I'll show you something else that you should do every time you do a primary. Okay, let me see. Oh, here it is. Take a drill bit that fits loosely into the 1/4-inch holes so it doesn't really damage anything. Put it in your local friendly drill and just go into each hole going around. Now you're not getting anything, but let me tell you, you will get so much old gasket material that has been pushed into these holes that it will accumulate to the point where you will try to be putting the screws in to hold the lid on and bumping up against that old gasket material inside these holes. So use the drill, it'll just bring it right out. And put a cloth here because a lot comes out, and it'll come on out of each of these holes, and then go around and around and around with good old cleaner carb and clean out each hole like so to blow out what's in there. Okay, so clean the leftover garbage gasket material out of these holes before you put it back together. Now I'm going to take this gasket, the new one. I just put my fingers with gasket material, the anaerobic, and I just do this all the way around, both sides, coating it, put it on, and seal her up. And it works just great. That's what I'm going to do now. Okay, it's 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm tired. Going to call it a day. The Triumph is completed, back together. Clutch installed, feels good. I've got the primary closed up. I have not put oil in it. I usually let it sit 24 hours before I put oil in anything. That gives the sealer the opportunity to coagulate. Everything's on back here. Got good feeling here. Nice and smooth. And we got good brake action. So all in all, I'm going to put in oil in it tomorrow morning. I'll put primary oil in it tomorrow morning and do a test ride tomorrow. Either myself or Kevin, maybe both of us. We'll see how it goes. And if you're hearing noises in the background, like blowing wind, tornado, it's because I forgot to turn the cooler off, and it's sitting over there blowing what it considers to be cool air in here. So sorry about that if you're hearing that in the background.